Welcome back. You're still tuned in to Salam Media with myself, Salalo Makwidiri, your home of humanitarian journalism. And the name of the show is News and Views, the Wednesday edition with myself, Salalo. The time is 11 minutes past 8, and we'll be turning our attention now into a groundbreaking decision coming out of Canada. And this decision will definitely have some really important international implications. The Jewish National Fund, the JNF of Canada, has lost its appeal to regain a charitable status, marking a significant win for Palestinian rights advocates who have long argued that JNF has funneled Canadian taxpayer dollars towards supporting Israel's occupation of Palestinian land. The Canada Revenue Agency revoked the JNF's charitable status in July following a detailed audit that found it was using donations to fund infrastructure benefiting Israel's military, which contravenes Canadian tax law, with an order to dissolve its Canadian assets estimated at $31 million. JNF Canada's loss is seen as a turning point in Canada's legal and moral stance on foreign aid misappropriation. And joining me live from Vancouver to discuss this decision is Charlotte Cates, the international coordinator of the Samidoun Palestinian Prisoner Solidarity Network. Charlotte, thank you so much for joining us here on Salam Media. Always a pleasure having you on our station, and I really appreciate you giving us your time.
Thank you so much for the invitation to join you today. It's always wonderful to join you at Salam Media.
Pleasure's all ours. I think, Charlotte, first off, can you give us a sense of how this, decision, I think a groundbreaking watershed decision is being received in Canada and within the pro-Palestinian activist community? What does it symbolize for those who have been calling for accountability on this issue?
Well, this is a very important decision because the JNF, the Jewish National Fund, has been a part of the Zionist colonial project, not just in the past year since the 7th of October, but since before 1948. The JNF is the owner of record of much of the land that has been stolen from Palestinians throughout occupied Palestine, from the river to the sea. And so the JNF has played a leading role in the colonization of Palestine, the theft of Palestinian land. This is what the JNF stands for. This has always been what it stood for. And so there's always been a really significant amount of pressure from grassroots activists demanding that, the JNF not be considered a charitable institution. And it should be noted that it's quite difficult to receive charitable status in Canada. This isn't something that most organizations don't even get a chance to have. And here the JNF is getting charitable status for colonizing Palestine and for stealing Palestinian land. In fact, they hold their fundraising dinners and call them the Negev dinners for the Negev desert to promote the idea of the colonization of the Negev and to raise money for it. So this is really like outrageous and egregious behavior on the part of the JNF. So to see that finally the Canada Revenue Agency is finally doing something about the outrageous behavior of the JNF, particularly the funneling of its charitable funds to support the genocidal military actions of the Israeli occupying forces, it's particularly critical at this time. And it's definitely been an occasion for celebration and also for recognizing that this isn't just an action that was taken by the Canada Revenue Agency because the Canadian government is now taking a solid position on Palestine. The Canadian government is still complicit in the ongoing genocide in Palestine. However, there's been so much pressure and exposure of what the JNF really stands for by grassroots activists and organizers that the CRA clearly had no choice but to revoke the charitable status of the JNF.
And we're using the word, funneling funds to Israeli, activities, particularly in Palestine. But do we know in literal terms, what kind of projects were they funding, where these projects were taking place, and ultimately how it affected the people of Palestine?
Well, we know that, so first of all, like the JNF, again, is responsible for activities like funding settlement building throughout occupied Palestine, including in 1948 occupied Palestine and elsewhere. A few years ago, the JNF in Canada had to make an official statement distancing itself from the JNF in occupied Palestine because of its commitment to dedicate funds to supporting West Bank settlements in occupied Palestine. I mean, one of the most notorious constructions of the JNF is this project called Canada Park, which is this completely non-indigenous forest of trees planted atop a destroyed Palestinian village as if to erase it from the scene. So, the JNF's projects have always directly impacted Palestinians because they have directly enabled and are responsible for the theft and confiscation and colonization of Palestinian land throughout occupied Palestine. Specifically, though, the issue at hand here is that the JNF's specific projects, which it claims to be supporting needy people, but in actuality, its projects were going to build infrastructure and buildings and provide services specifically to Israeli occupation forces, soldiers, and veterans, etc. So therefore, directly really funding the activities of a genocidal occupying army. And of course, we know that literally everything the IOF does affects Palestinians, because the whole purpose of the IOF is to be a genocidal occupying army in occupied Palestine 48, in the West Bank, in Gaza, in Jerusalem. This is the army that is responsible for massacring Palestinians, for invading refugee camps, for assassinating resistance leaders, for mass incarceration of thousands of Palestinians, and all of the countless war crimes and crimes against humanity that are carried out by the occupying forces on a daily basis. So any contribution to their infrastructure, no matter how small, is a contribution directly to those war crimes and crimes against humanity.
I want us to take a quick break, but when we come back, I want us to focus a bit beyond the legal dimensions of the story. The fact that there's a human side to it, and you have Palestinian families who have lost their land and homes, whether it's directly or indirectly due to JNF's activities. I want, if maybe, when we come back, if you could share, if there are any stories or personal accounts that you've come across of families that have lost their land and how it has affected them. But we'll touch on that a bit after this short break.
Stay ahead with Salam Media. This is Salam Media, coming to you live from South Africa.
After the recent attacks on Gaza, many families have been displaced, with their homes left destroyed. Through your donations, our teams are on the ground in Gaza, providing support and delivering necessary aid to families affected. The people of Gaza need your help. Give hope. Donate today to Penny Appeal South Africa. www.pennyappeal.org.za 031 1100 573.
We are here on the ground with Penny Appeal organizations in Gaza.
It's a wonder how kids get anything done these days with all the distractions.
Join Hamza on his exclusive South African tour as he shares his personal experiences, never before seen footage, and powerful insights on the ongoing genocide in Gaza.
This house I'm standing on is completely destroyed.
This war should stop.
These 5 houses was full of civilians.
We are here in the middle of a Zahra neighborhood.
People gathering here, trying to help people.
The whole neighborhood is already destroyed.
This is more than just a talk. It's an invitation to witness Gaza through the lens of Hamza Sha'alan. Don't miss this opportunity to meet the photojournalist who brought Gaza's pain and perseverance to the world in its darkest moments.
Hamza Sha'alan, Rafah border, Gaza.
Follow Salam Media on social media pages for more on this tour and be part of the conversation.
Discover the Africa of your dreams and surround yourself with her spectacular beauty. Relax beneath her serene sunsets and explore wildlife at its natural best. It's where the pride of Africa comes together. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve. Get to know the Big Five or cruise on an elephant safari game drive. Interact with lion and tiger cubs and enjoy world-class halal cuisine while we pamper you during your 5-star stay. Indulge in the true African experience. For reservations, call now on 042 203 1400 or visit kwantu.co.za. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve, the place of gathering.
Valley's Motor Spares. We supply motor spares and accessories for all makes and models of motor cars, LDVs, bakkies, trucks, and earth-moving equipment. We deliver on time, every time. Please contact us via WhatsApp on 014-592-0925 or call 014-592-0925 or visit 28 Zenderling Street, Rustenburg. Remember the name, Valley's Motor Spares.
Connect and stay ahead with Salam Media. This is Salam Media, coming to you live from South Africa.
Welcome back. The time is 22 minutes past 8, and you're still tuned in to Salam Media with myself, Salalo Makwidiri. And we're having a really interesting conversation with Charlotte Cades. She's the international coordinator for the Samidoun Palestinian Prisoner Solidarity Network. And we're having a really interesting conversation around the JNF, Canada's Jewish National Fund, losing its charitable status over support for Israel's illegal occupation. Charlotte, thank you so much for staying with us. Before we went to the break, I wanted us to look a bit beyond, the legal, nitty-gritties of the story and try to find the human element. Are there families that you've come across or some people that have reached out to you that, tell you that, we've lost land, we've lost our homes, and this could be directly or indirectly because of the influence of the Jewish National Fund that, has been found to be funneling funds to Israel's occupation of Palestinian land?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the JNF was established in 1901, and it was the foremost organization involved in the land colonization of Palestine. So when we think about a Nakba in 1947 and 1948, the story of every Palestinian family who were driven from their homes and their lands, the stories of the over 500 Palestinian villages that were destroyed, every Nakba survivor that you meet who has a key to their family's home that was taken over and occupied by the Zionists, in almost every single case, the JNF is officially now the holder of the title of that land after it was stripped from its true Palestinian owners by the Zionist regime after 1948 through the absentee property law. So whenever you've met like a Nakba survivor who's talking about what they've lost, who tells the story of how they were driven at gunpoint from their villages and from their homes and forced out of Palestine in 1948 and forced into refugee camps in the West Bank, in Gaza, in Syria, in Lebanon, in Egypt, and elsewhere. This is a story of someone's land who's been stolen by the Jewish National Fund. I mentioned Canada Park earlier. It's a really notorious forest in occupied Palestine because it was built atop the destroyed Palestinian village of Imwas. And there are Palestinian families from Imwas that are living in Canada now. And they would love to return to Imwas, but that right's been denied to them for the past 76 years. And the Jewish National Fund took their homes and their mosques and their schools and their agricultural lands and planted a forest full of Canadian trees on the soil of occupied Palestine over their homes. And so when we think about this, it's really just 76 years of millions of Palestinians who have been directly impacted by the JNF. But this isn't just a story of the history of the JNF and the horrors that they're responsible for during the Nakba and following the Nakba. This is a continuing story to the present day. So if we take a look at Al-Nakab, at the south of occupied Palestine, basically there's been an ongoing project that the Zionist entity is promoting, which is for the colonization of the Nakab and the building of quote-unquote Jewish areas there. And what that has meant has been that Bedouin families and communities have been repeatedly, forcibly displaced by that their tents and structures have been run over and bulldozed by occupation forces. Just in the past several years, People have been locked up. People have been shot in the back by occupation soldiers because they were protesting the theft of their land and the theft of their resources that is being funded fully by the Jewish National Fund up to the present day. Right now, there is settlement construction that is being funded by the Jewish National Fund today. So like Palestinians in the West Bank, in villages that are fighting every day to keep their olive trees and keep their land against the encroachment of settlements, are facing not just the Zionist army, not just the support of the imperialist powers like the US, France, Germany, Britain, and frankly, Canada, but also the Jewish National Fund as like one of the main institutions of the Zionist movement internationally. And so this is one of the things that makes this decision so important, because it's showing that like even in the heart of the imperial core, one of these key Zionist institutions responsible for the colonization of Palestine can be forced and exposed through popular pressure to lose its status. And that's something that's very important to see.
And if we can just focus on the JNF and the argument that they're putting on the table, what are they saying? I know, doing the little research around them, they're saying their mission focuses on environmental and social projects, and they often use phrases like making the desert bloom. When it comes to this case specifically, what argument have they been making?
Well, essentially, I mean, on the legal level, they've essentially been making the argument that they weren't given a chance enough by the Canada Revenue Agency to correct their mistakes and their errors, and that the CRA was being somehow unfair to them, even though what we've seen since the revocation was announced is that this is a process that's been going on for over 10 years. And instead, the JNF has only continued to engage in these colonial projects, and this funding and support of occupation forces, and its funding and support of settler projects. So rather than reducing that, they've just continued doing it. Largely, they've just been saying that they haven't had enough time to fix any errors, that they feel that they're being discriminated against, that they think it's unfair that they're facing this kind of attention, and that they have defended their work by claiming that they're engaged in environmental projects, social projects that are helping vulnerable populations. But the fact is that we know that the vulnerable populations in occupied Palestine are Palestinians whose land has been stolen by the JNF. So there's nothing that could help vulnerable populations in occupied Palestine more than forcing the JNF and the Zionist entity as a whole out of Palestine and out of everywhere around the world.
And just lastly, before I let you go, as someone who's deeply involved in the advocacy for Palestinian rights, do you see this decision as maybe a small shift in Canada's political landscape when it comes to foreign policy on Palestine itself?
Unfortunately, no. I wish I could say that, but I don't believe that that's true, at least not on the part of the government. The reality is that the vast majority of people in Canada are against the genocide. They don't want to be a part of genocide. They don't want to fund it. They don't want to support it. They don't want arms to be shipped from Canada. There have been thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people taking the streets relentlessly for over a year to make that demand. But unfortunately, we continue to see the Canadian government and Canadian government officials continue to engage in genocide support and apologia for genocide, and really in continued complicity in the colonization of Palestine. This is one step forward, but it's really not enough, and it's not what we need to see. What we need to see from Canada is an arms embargo on the Zionist entity. What we need to see from Canada is an end to its support for ongoing genocide and colonization in Palestine.
I think we're going to leave it there for now. Charlotte, thank you so much for giving us your time. I know it's getting a bit late in Vancouver, so we're going to let you, go and start preparing to go to bed.
Thank you so much. It's been a joy to be with you today. Thank you again.
Well, there you have it there, Charlotte, coming to us live from Vancouver in Canada. Yeah, and I think a very, very important conversation that reveals just how deeply the legal, political, and human rights dimensions are intertwined in the fight for justice in Palestine. We'll be keeping a close watch on how the story unfolds and its reverberations beyond Canada. But one thing that's really disappointing for me is the fact that, Charlotte is saying, although this is an appreciated move, but it doesn't necessarily mean, it will in any way, shift, the political landscape when it comes to foreign policy on Palestine in Canada. So we hope that, it's little victories like this that could ultimately lead to a bigger victory, which is a change in foreign policy and, a different kind of stance from the Canadian government and maybe just from the West generally. Important conversation that we had there. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, News and Views continues.
We are here in the middle of a Zahra neighborhood. The whole neighborhood is already destroyed. More than 17 towers are down. Here, as you can see, the firefighters trying their best to help. The people are still under the rubble. A lot of the people.
Join Hamza on his exclusive South African tour as he shares his personal experiences, never before seen footage, and powerful insights on the ongoing genocide in Gaza. This is more than just a talk. It's an invitation to witness Gaza through the lens of Hamza Sha'alan. Don't miss this opportunity to meet the photojournalist who brought Gaza's pain and perseverance to the world in its darkest moments. Follow Salam Media on social media pages for more on this tour and be part of the conversation.
Connect and stay ahead with Salam Media. This is Salam Media, coming to you live from South Africa.